What's good, everybody? Welcome back, Philly Fantasy John Podcast. Look, all right. So we had breaking news. George Pickens goes to the Dallas Cowboys, and look, for me, it's F Dallas. I'm an Eagles fan, right? But let me just talk about this real quick, right? Because from a fantasy football standpoint, I like the move. I've told people I've been big on George Pickens, not in terms of fantasy football. I have drafted him at times and he's been a disappointment, but he's been a disappointment not because of his talent, it's because of where he's been. And you can say the same for like people like Najee Harris as well. These are people like Najee and George Pickens are the ones that I believe needed a change of scenery. So I'm glad that George Pickens is out of Pittsburgh and he's on to Dallas. Because one thing we do know about Dallas, Dak Prescott's going to throw the ball. I believe that we have yet, like this year, with the running back situation with Dallas, you have Deuce Vaughn, you have Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and a new rookie. They signed the undrafted free agent Jaden Blue. So it's like, we don't know what the run game is going to be like in Dallas. And when the run game is questionable in Dallas, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be passing. So this, honestly, is a good thing because CD is going to still get his. But now they actually have a complimentary wide receiver to go with CD Lamb. Like they tried with, ever since Amari Cooper has left, they haven't had that wide receiver. You had the Jalen Tolberts of the world. I can't remember the other people they might have signed. But with George Pickens there, I believe that he's definitely an option on fantasy football. You can definitely draft him. I believe that he's going to be due for a good year. It depends on how he picks the offense up. I'm not sure how he's going to mesh with that locker room, but I'm excited. I think George Pickens has new life because one thing about Pittsburgh quarterback situation has sucked over the last few years. Ever since Ben Roethlisberger has retired, Pittsburgh quarterback situation has sucked. And their offense in general has been vanilla. It's not a high volume offense in terms of supporting wide receivers. I think that George Pickens suffered from that because honestly, George Pickens, before DK Metcalf got there, he was their best weapon, but they barely threw it to him. It was either and even with Pat Freiermuth, he had his games, but George Pickens is the most talented wide receiver on their team. And the fact that Pittsburgh never really truly maximized his value, I believe that in a good situation, this is going to be a good year for George Pickens. So I believe that his stock has gone up. I believe that he will ball. Not sure where you're going to get him, but he's definitely one of those value picks. I believe that he's one of those value picks that you're going to be able to get in deep leagues or even just 12-team leagues. You might be able to get him as a solid flex. I do believe it also opens more possibilities for Jake Ferguson, who's their tight end, because now it's like, you got CD, you got George Pickens, and Jake Ferguson should benefit from them two presence being there because they're going to have to focus on George Pickens and CD Lamb. So Jake Ferguson takes a step up too as well. So just in general, I'm excited about this trade. I wouldn't say through the roof excited because George Pickens has been inconsistent, but I think that inconsistency came from the team he was on, the Steelers, and I can't wait to see how him and CD Lamb mesh up. But I am willing to draft him. I'm definitely willing to draft him at a right price and everything like that. I can see George Pickens probably going maybe, depending on what type of league you are, maybe 5th to 6th round maybe. But I'm excited about it. I think it opens up new possibilities, and I think that we're going to see a respectable George Pickens. A George Pickens that's going to easily eclipse 1,000 yards. And in that Dallas offense, if him and Dak mesh right, it's going to be a nice little 1A, 1B situation where he complements CeeDee Lamb real well. CeeDee Lamb's still going to get his. He's still a top wide receiver in the game. And he's still going to, be drafted high. But George Pickens is now going to be one of those mid-round pieces that you can get, and he's going to ball out for you. I believe he's going to ball out. Not sure where think he's going to finish, but he's definitely going to be a true flex value now. So if you're a fan of George Pickens, if you're a fan of Cowboys, if you play fantasy football in general, don't forget George Pickens. George Pickens is going to be in the offense now that actually throw it to him, and probably throw it to him on a consistent basis. How I think it's going to break down, I think that George Pickens is going to get his, CeeDee is going to get his. It might be games where CeeDee gets his a little bit more, but I do believe it's going to be breakout games where you might see George Pickens, 7, 8 receptions, 100+ yards, maybe a touchdown or two. Or even it could just be one of them 4 or 5 reception games, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns. You never know. But we've seen over the years when George Pickens gets the volume, he makes do with it. His problem in Pittsburgh was he never got the volume. And people, I was just talking to a Cowboys fan today, and he does not like the move. He thinks he's a bonehead. He thinks he's a diva and all this other stuff. But I'm like, what wide receiver isn't? All these wide receivers want to get the ball. And we've seen over the years, when George Pickens has his best games, is because he got the ball. And he got it in consistently during the game. And now I think we're going to see more of that this season, barring any injury, barring any crazy drama, or any just drop in production. So that's all I got to say. I am excited about this move. So, keep George Pickens on your mind when you do them drafts. He's a Cowboys now, and from a fantasy football standpoint, that is great. All right, I'm out.